Ladies and gentlemen, the greatest battlefield in life is not in the workplace, not in politics, not in the economy. The greatest battlefield is the mind. What you allow to live in your mind will eventually rule your life. And the problem with negative thoughts is that they are squatters. They live in places they were never meant to dwell. Every human being has the capacity for greatness, but most people are not defeated by external enemies. They are defeated by internal conversations, quiet thoughts that whisper, "You're not enough. You'll never succeed. You'll always fail." These thoughts are not facts. They are lies dressed as logic. The first step to removing negative thoughts is to locate the source. Ask yourself, where is this coming from? Was it a word spoken by a parent, a teacher, a past failure, or maybe the culture around you? Identifying the source exposes the root, and what you expose, you can evict. Second, you must make a decision to renew your mind. Renewal is not a one-time event, it is a daily process. Just as you don't shower once a month, you must wash your mind daily with truth. And truth is not just information, truth is revelation. When you discover who you really are, you stop believing who the world told you were. Guard your mind like a soldier guards a fortress. Don't let just anything in. What you watch, what you hear, who you follow, these are not neutral. Everything is either building you or breaking you. You must build a defense system for your thought life. Say to yourself, if it doesn't build me, I don't entertain it. And here's something powerful. Your mouth is a weapon against mental warfare. You can speak yourself out of a prison. Life and death are in the power of the tongue, not in the economy, not in the government, not in your boss, but in your tongue. Start speaking what you want to see, not what you're afraid of. Meditate on truth. Truth is not always popular, but it is always liberating. Think on things that are pure, noble, and praiseworthy. Meditation is not emptying your mind, it's filling it with the right material. What you meditate on, you magnify. If you think about pain, pain grows. If you think about potential, purpose awakens. Negative thoughts often feel like a part of us, natural, ever present, and unavoidable. But the truth is, they are often intruders, not residents. To begin the process of removing them, the first and most vital step is to identify their source. You cannot conquer what you do not confront, and you cannot confront what you have not located. Negative thoughts rarely originate from our true God-given identity. More often, they are seeded by external influences and internalized experiences that were never meant to define us. Many of us walk through life carrying thoughts planted in childhood. Maybe a parent said you were a failure, or a teacher laughed at your dreams. Maybe society told you you're too late, too early, too broken, or too small. These words form mental templates, and if left unchallenged, they become the filters through which we see ourselves. But here's the critical point. Just because a thought lives in your mind doesn't mean it belongs to you. Some thoughts are inherited. Others are picked up from the culture. Still others are deposited during traumatic or emotionally charged experiences. These are not your thoughts. They are invaders. They are viruses in the operating system of your mind, designed to limit, shame, or paralyze you. Identifying the source of a negative thought means asking deep, honest questions. When did I first start thinking this way? What caused me to believe this about myself? Whose voice does this sound like? These are not casual reflections, they are spiritual excavations. Every thought has a root, and when you trace that thought to its origin, you are on the path to healing. Some of those roots may go back years, even decades. A simple sentence spoken by someone in authority, a parent, a pastor, a friend, may have embedded itself deep in your soul. And now, long after the speaker is gone, their words still echo in your mind. That's how powerful thoughts are. They can outlive moments, they can outlive seasons, but they do not have to live forever. In identifying the source, you also gain the power to disconnect the lie from your identity. If you believe the thought is yours, you will protect it. But when you realize it was placed there by something external, you begin to take authority over it. That is a critical shift. Many people are trapped not by the thought itself, but by the belief that the thought is a reflection of who they are. But you are not your fear, you are not your failure, you are not your worst moment. You are not the opinion of someone who could not see your worth. You are who God says you are. Until you can separate your identity from the intrusion will feel like your identity. This step is not just psychological, it is deeply spiritual. Scripture tells us that we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against powers, principalities, and spiritual forces. Negative thoughts are often spiritual arrows, not mental observations. They are designed to rob you of peace, purpose, and potential. When you trace the thought to its origin, you can begin to discern whether it came from fear, from the flesh, or from the enemy. Each source demands a different strategy, but all require clarity. Clarity comes when you slow down and ask the right questions. The mind unchecked runs wild, but the mind examined begins to heal. This is not a one-time process. Identifying the source of negative thoughts is a discipline. It must be repeated, refined, and deepened over time. Some sources are easy to detect: a hurtful comment, a failed project, a toxic relationship. Others are more subtle, silent comparisons, generational patterns, or societal narratives. But no matter how hidden, every negative thought has a starting point. And when you find that point, you can begin to rewrite the script. Because what enters your mind may not be your fault, but what stays there is your responsibility. Renewing your mind is not a cliché or a motivational phrase. It is a fundamental principle of transformation. Until the mind is renewed, nothing in your life can be truly sustained. You may experience a temporary change in behavior or a short-lived burst of motivation, but without a renewed mind, old thought patterns will always pull you back into the same cycles. The reason many people stay stuck is not because they lack opportunity, talent, or desire. It's because their minds are still programmed by the past. A renewed life requires a reprogrammed mind. The mind is the command center of your existence. Every action you take, every habit you build, every relationship you maintain is influenced by what happens between your ears. That is why transformation does not begin with a new environment, a new job, or even a new relationship. It begins with a new thought. When your mind is renewed, your perspective shifts, and when your perspective shifts, your decisions change. And when your decisions change, your life changes. But most people attempt to fix the fruit of their lives, the symptoms, without addressing the root, which is their mental programming. Renewing the mind means replacing old, destructive thought patterns with truth. This is not just about positive thinking. It is about aligning your mind with a higher standard, the truth of who you are, what you were created to do, and what is possible for you. Old thoughts sound like "I can't," "I'll never," "I always mess up," "people like me don't succeed." These are not harmless musings. They are internal agreements with failure, and any lie you agree with, you empower. The renewal process starts when you break those agreements and begin to embrace new truth-based patterns. This renewal is not automatic, it is intentional. Just as you cannot build a strong body without consistent exercise, you cannot build a strong mind without consistent mental discipline. You must be deliberate about what you think, and how long you entertain a thought. Most people never think about what they're thinking about. They allow thoughts to come and go without examination, and as a result they live as victims of their own minds. But you were never created to live at the mercy of your thoughts. You were created to master them. One of the most powerful tools for renewing the mind is repetition. What you hear repeatedly becomes what you believe. What you rehearse internally becomes what you manifest externally. That is why many people who sit under negativity, whether in the form of media, music, or even toxic conversations, begin to reflect that negativity in their beliefs and behavior. If you want a renewed mind, you must expose it to a new message. The truth you hear consistently is the truth you begin to embody. You must saturate your mind with what is noble, right, pure, and purposeful. Another key aspect of renewal is awareness. You cannot renew what you are not aware is broken. That means paying attention to your self-talk, to your internal narratives, to the thoughts that appear automatically in response to life's challenges. When a difficulty arises, what's your first thought? Is it panic, doubt, shame, or is it faith, vision, and strength? The default responses of your mind reveal the condition of your mind. If negativity is your default, then your mind has been conditioned by fear, failure, or past pain. But if purpose and peace are your default, then your mind is being renewed daily. The process of renewing the mind is ongoing. It is not a one-time event, but a daily commitment. Old thought patterns have deep roots. Some of them have been growing for years. You cannot expect to remove them overnight. But every day you choose truth over lies, vision over fear, and purpose over confusion, you are renewing your mental foundation. You are tearing down the strongholds that once ruled your decisions. And you are building a new system of thought that supports your destiny. Your mind is a gate. And just like a physical gate determines who or what is allowed into a property, your mental gate determines what is allowed to influence your life. One of the greatest causes of negative thinking is a lack of discernment at this gate. Many people live with polluted minds because they have opened doors to toxic information, destructive conversations, and unhealthy relationships. They wonder why they are constantly anxious, fearful, or angry, not realizing that their minds have been overexposed to content that contradicts peace, joy, and purpose. Guarding the gate of your mind is not about living in denial or cutting yourself off from the world. It is about stewardship. You are responsible for what you allow in. Just as you wouldn't allow garbage to be dumped in your home, you should not allow garbage thoughts to be dumped into your mind. The mind is sacred. It is the soil in which ideas grow. If you keep planting seeds of fear, comparison, doubt, and confusion, do not be surprised when you harvest a life full of anxiety and dissatisfaction. What goes in eventually comes out because your thoughts shape your beliefs and your beliefs shape your behavior. One of the primary ways that access is granted to the mind is through media. What you watch, what you listen to, what you scroll through, all of it enters the mental gate. And even when it feels harmless, it carries messages, values, and assumptions that begin to shape how you think. If you constantly feed on content that glorifies violence, drama, greed, or hopelessness, your mind becomes accustomed to chaos. It no longer craves peace. It craves stimulation. It becomes addicted to negativity. You must choose carefully what you consume, because everything you consume is planting something. The question is, what is it planting? Another gate is conversation. Words are containers. They carry power. When you engage in conversations full of gossip, pessimism, or fear, those words don't just evaporate. They enter your consciousness. They shape how you view the world and how you view yourself. If you are constantly surrounded by people who speak death about themselves, about others, about the future, it is only a matter of time before that language becomes your own. You begin to mirror the environment you entertain. That is why you must sometimes choose solitude over toxic company, silence over destructive noise, and selective association over reckless exposure. Guarding your mind also means setting standards. You must define what you will and will not tolerate mentally. That means having internal boundaries. You can set time limits on exposure to social media. You can decide not to participate in conversations that leave you feeling drained. You can train yourself to turn off the television, close the browser, or exit the room when something is feeding your mind poison. Discipline is not deprivation, it is protection. You do not protect what is worthless. You protect what is valuable. Your mind is your most valuable asset because your future flows through it. Even environments affect the mind. Some places are spiritually heavy. Some spaces carry residue from arguments, trauma, or long-standing dysfunction. Just being in certain environments can trigger negative thought patterns. That's why you need to become sensitive to the atmospheres around you. Ask yourself, how do I feel after leaving this place? How does this environment affect my thinking? Do I feel uplifted or drained, focused or distracted? Awareness leads to wisdom, and wisdom leads to intentional decisions about where you spend your time and with whom. Finally, you must guard your mind by replacing what you remove. Nature abhors a vacuum. If you remove negative input but do not replace it with truth, hope, vision, and inspiration, the void will be filled again by default patterns. This is why people often return to old habits even after a breakthrough moment. It's not enough to shut the gate. You must also decide what you will let in. You must intentionally feed your mind with content, conversations, and environments that elevate your thinking. What you protect, you preserve. And what you preserve, you multiply. The power of the spoken word is immeasurable. It is not just a form of communication, it is a tool for creation. Every word you speak has the potential to shape your reality. Unfortunately, many people are unaware of the profound impact their words have on their thoughts and lives. We often take for granted the simple act of speaking, failing to realize that the words we release into the world are also seeds planted into our minds and hearts. And just as seeds grow into plants, the words you speak grow into the reality you experience. It is essential to understand that words are never neutral. They are either life-giving or life-draining. When you speak, you are either affirming truth and potential, or you are reinforcing doubt and limitation. The human tongue has the ability to build up or tear down, to bless or to curse, to encourage or to discourage. The Bible tells us that life and death are in the power of the tongue. This is not a metaphor, it is a law of the universe. Words are creative forces. They bring into existence what we constantly declare, whether consciously or unconsciously. If you want to change your thought patterns, you must start with your words. Negative thoughts often find a foothold in our lives because they are reinforced by negative speech. When you entertain thoughts of inadequacy, fear, or failure, and then speak them out loud, you are giving them authority in your life. You give them power. When you say, "I can't do this," "I will never succeed," or "I'm not good enough," you are prophesying over your own future. You are declaring limitations over your potential, and those words, spoken with conviction, begin to create the reality you fear. But when you change your speech, you change your inner world. Your words are the antidote to the poison of negative thinking. When you speak words of faith, affirmation, and encouragement, you plant seeds of possibility in your mind. The more you speak words of life, the more your mind begins to believe in the possibility of success, the potential for growth, and the reality of victory. Speaking life over yourself and your circumstances is not just about positive thinking. It is about aligning your words with the truth of who you are and what you were created to achieve. This is not to say that speaking positive words alone will change everything. Words must be aligned with truth, purpose, and faith. Empty words devoid of conviction carry no power. But when you speak with belief, when you declare truth over your life, when you affirm your worth, your ability, and your destiny, your words begin to reshape your mind and eventually your world. There is a profound connection between what you say and what you believe, and what you believe becomes what you experience. To begin speaking life, you must start by catching the negative words before they leave your mouth. Self-awareness is critical. The next time you feel a negative thought arising, pause before you speak. Recognize the thought for what it is, an enemy that does not belong in your mind. Instead of speaking that thought out loud, replace it with a positive declaration of truth. Instead of saying, "I can't," say, "I am capable." Instead of "I'm not good enough," say, "I am fearfully and wonderfully made." Instead of focusing on the problem, speak about the solution. Your words should reflect the truth of your identity and the promises of your future. Another powerful practice is to speak life not only over yourself, but also over others. The words you speak to others come back to you. When you speak words of encouragement, you are planting seeds of positivity in the environment around you. These words not only uplift others, but also elevate your own thinking and mindset. Speaking life over others creates a ripple effect that can transform communities, relationships, and even nations. The more you speak life, the more you create an atmosphere of possibility and growth. Remember, the words you speak are a reflection of your heart. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. If your heart is full of fear, doubt, and negativity, your words will reflect that. But when your heart is full of faith, hope, and vision, your words will align with that truth. The journey to removing negative thoughts begins with speaking life into your mind and your circumstances. Speak boldly, speak confidently, and speak with purpose. Your words are the brushstrokes that paint the canvas of your future. What you speak today will shape your tomorrow. What you meditate on, you magnify. This is a powerful principle of life that many people overlook. The things you focus on in your mind become larger, more significant, and more influential over time. Our thoughts are like a magnifying glass. They enlarge whatever we direct our attention to. If we consistently focus on negative thoughts, fear, or failure, these ideas begin to consume our thinking. They take up more space in our minds and become more real to us, even though they are not necessarily true. Similarly, when we choose to focus on positive thoughts, truth, and vision, we enlarge those aspects in our lives as well. The principle of meditation is not just about thinking, but about what you consistently rehearse in your mind. The mind is the soil, and what you plant in it, whether it is negative or positive, will grow and shape your future. Meditation is the process of intentionally reflecting, thinking, and contemplating on specific ideas. It is not passive. It is an active, deliberate choice to give attention to something. This act of focusing is where the power lies. When you meditate on something, you allow it to settle in your heart and mind. It becomes part of you. And the more time you spend with a thought or belief, the more it becomes rooted in your subconscious mind. So the question becomes, what are you meditating on? If you spend your time dwelling on past mistakes, failed relationships, or personal shortcomings, you are meditating on failure. You are constantly rehearsing thoughts of inadequacy, and as a result, these thoughts grow stronger in your life. You begin to believe that failure is your identity, and the more you believe it, the more you create circumstances that reinforce this belief. But if you choose to meditate on your strengths, your potential, and the truth of who you are building a foundation for success. You are feeding your mind with thoughts that align with your true identity, which is rooted in purpose, capability, and divine potential. The act of meditation is not just about conscious thinking, it is about shaping your identity. You see, your thoughts become your beliefs, and your beliefs become your actions. This cycle continues until it becomes a lifestyle. If you are continually meditating on thoughts that are aligned with your purpose, vision, and goals, you will begin to live in alignment with those truths. Your actions will reflect the beliefs that have been established in your mind. If, however, you allow negative thoughts to dominate your thinking, your actions will reflect that as well. You will unconsciously limit yourself because you believe you are limited. What you meditate on also determines the atmosphere you create around you. If your thoughts are filled with negativity, your environment will reflect that. You will be drawn to people, situations, and experiences that confirm your negative beliefs. However, when you meditate on positive thoughts, purpose, and the promises of your future, you create an environment that supports and attracts growth. Your thoughts begin to shape your external world, and as your internal world aligns with positive outcomes, your external world starts to reflect those outcomes as well. The power of meditation also lies in its ability to transform your perspective. When you meditate on truth, on what is good, pure, and praiseworthy, your outlook on life changes. You begin to see possibilities where others see obstacles. You see opportunities where others see limitations. This shift in perspective allows you to approach challenges with a mindset of solutions rather than problems. You start to think creatively and resourcefully because your mind has been conditioned to focus on answers, not barriers. In this sense, meditation is a tool for breaking free from the shackles of negative thinking. It is a way to reprogram your mind and replace old thought patterns with new, empowering beliefs. You have the ability to choose what you will focus on. In every moment, you are making a decision about what you will meditate on. You can choose to meditate on your fears, your past mistakes, and your limitations. Or you can choose to meditate on your potential, your strengths, and the promises of your future. The choice is yours. The key to successful meditation is consistency. You cannot expect to meditate on positive thoughts once and see an immediate transformation. Just as physical exercise requires regular effort to build strength, mental exercise requires consistent practice to cultivate a renewed mind. It is only through continuous meditation on truth and possibility that you begin to change the way you think and ultimately the way you live. What you meditate on, you magnify. What you magnify, you manifest. And what you manifest is the life you are creating every day with the thoughts you choose to focus on. To break free from negative thoughts, one of the most powerful tools at your disposal is to replace old, limiting thoughts with new, empowering ones. Negative thoughts are not only disruptive but also deceptive. They often masquerade as truth, leaving you feeling defeated, anxious, or inadequate. These thoughts can take root in the mind over time, often beginning as small doubts or fears, and slowly growing into powerful narratives that shape how we see ourselves and our circumstances. But the key to dismantling these negative patterns is to replace them with thoughts that align with the truth of who you are, your potential, and your purpose. Replacing negative thoughts doesn't happen passively. It is a deliberate and intentional act. The mind, by default, tends to repeat the same patterns and thoughts. It's often easier to stay in the familiar, even if the familiar is negative or harmful. But transformation requires conscious effort. The first step is awareness. When you begin to recognize the negative thought patterns in your mind, you take the first step toward breaking free from them. Awareness allows you to distinguish between what is true and what is a lie. It helps you understand that the negative thoughts you may be entertaining are not a reflection of who you truly are, but rather distortions that need to be confronted and replaced. Once you have identified a negative thought, the next step is to challenge it. Often, we hold on to negative thoughts because they feel familiar or comfortable. They might even be tied to past experiences or trauma, which can make them feel like part of our identity. However, when you challenge a negative thought, you are questioning its authority. You ask yourself, is this thought true? Does it align with the truth of who I am and what I am capable of? By asking these questions, you begin to dismantle the foundation on which the negative thought stands. This is an important step in replacing it with a more accurate truth-based thought. After challenging the negative thought, the next step is to replace it with a positive, empowering one. This new thought needs to be grounded in truth, your truth, not someone else's perceptions or the opinions of the world around you. For example, if the negative thought is I am a failure, you can replace it with a thought such as I am capable of learning and growing from my mistakes. If the thought is I'll never succeed, you can replace it with I have everything I need to succeed and I will keep moving forward. These positive thoughts should not be empty affirmations, but grounded in your personal values, your potential, and the greater truth about who you are. This replacement process is not something that happens overnight. It is a journey. Negative thought patterns have likely been built over years, and so the act of replacing them requires persistence and patience. It is a mental discipline to consistently recognize negative thoughts and replace them with more truthful, empowering alternatives. But each time you replace a negative thought with a positive one, you create a new pathway in your brain, strengthening the neural connections associated with those positive thoughts. Over time, this rewiring of the brain begins to shift your perspective and your emotional responses to life. A vital aspect of this process is consistency. Replacing negative thoughts with positive ones requires continual practice. It is like exercising a muscle. The more you work at it, the stronger it becomes. You must be vigilant about what you allow into your mind. If you consistently choose to replace negative thoughts with empowering ones, you begin to cultivate a mindset that is focused on growth, possibilities, and resilience. It becomes easier to recognize when negative thoughts are creeping in, and in turn, easier to replace them with healthier ones. Another important element of replacing negative thoughts is the practice of gratitude. When you focus on the things you are thankful for, you shift your mindset from scarcity to abundance. Negative thoughts often stem from a mindset of lack of resources, lack of ability, lack of opportunity. But gratitude shifts the focus to what you have, not what you don't have. By consistently practicing gratitude, you reinforce a mindset that looks for the good in every situation, even when things aren't going perfectly. This shift in mindset is a key part of replacing negative thoughts with more constructive and empowering alternatives. Finally, surrounding yourself with people who uplift and encourage you is essential in the process of replacing negative thoughts. The people you spend the most time with can either reinforce your negative beliefs or help you build new, empowering ones. Positive relationships create an environment where healthy, constructive thoughts are encouraged and negative, limiting thoughts are challenged. These relationships act as a mirror, reflecting back to you the truth of your worth, your potential, and your capabilities. Ultimately, replacing negative thoughts is a process of transformation. It is about changing the way you think, which in turn changes the way you feel, act, and experience life. By actively replacing negative thoughts with positive, empowering ones, you begin to create a mental environment that supports your growth, purpose, and success. It requires intentionality, awareness, and consistency, but over time, it becomes a natural part of your life, allowing you to live with greater peace, confidence, and joy. In conclusion, removing negative thoughts is not a one-time effort, but an ongoing process of transformation that requires intentionality, awareness, and consistent action. It begins with the realization that your mind is the foundation of your life, and what you think, believe, and speak has the power to shape your reality. By renewing your mind, guarding the gate of your thoughts, and intentionally replacing negativity with truth and positivity, you start to reprogram your thinking. Meditation, the power of words, and focused mental discipline are tools that, when applied consistently, begin to dismantle the strongholds of negativity that hold you back from your potential. Surrounding yourself with positivity, embracing gratitude, and choosing empowering thoughts over limiting beliefs create an environment in which growth and success become natural outcomes. The journey to a renewed mind may not always be easy, but it is a journey worth taking, as it unlocks the life you were meant to live, a life of purpose, peace, and possibility. The transformation begins with you, in the thoughts you choose today, and carries with it the power to shape your future for the better.